sometimes people have what it takes, but they haven't recognized it yet. Just go forward. So what do you need to do? How do you stand out? So what you need to do is be that person that's different and is bigger than you think. Rise from the ashes and fly like the phoenixes that you are. Record. Welcome, everybody. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to some of you, depending on where you are at in the world. I appreciate, as always, you guys being on here. My name is Andrew David. This is Blake Newbar's partner program. These high-performance calls daily, Monday through Friday at noon. If you're watching on the replay, make sure that you say hello, that you comment, that you hit the subscribe button, all that kind of stuff. Now, guys, so Friday, I got a chance to go listen to James Lawrence, Iron Cowboy. I've talked to you guys about him. If you're unfamiliar with who the Iron Cowboy is, he wrote this book called Redefine Impossible. You can find it online. You can get it on Amazon, but he's got something right now where you can get a signed copy for really the same price. So, find him on Facebook, that kind of thing, or message me and I can get you the link. Anyway, I've had a cool opportunity recently. I get to work with James. And the plan is it's going to be probably a few years worth of work. We're going to work on a coaching program that he's put together. I'm going to help him put that together. He wants to do events, all sorts of other cool stuff. I'm not trying to pitch it. I'm just setting up what happened. So he was in Orlando this last week, and I got to go hang out with him. I got to watch him speak, and then we went to dinner. We went and hung out. But I was listening to him, and he was talking about some stories. And he was talking about different things that he had to do, and he's talking about confidence, and he's talking about pushing himself in one more step. So if you're wondering who he is, a lot of you guys have already heard of him, yes, right? Others may not. So he set a world record a few years back. He did 30 Ironman full distance triathlons in a year, and just blew apart the previous world record. And as soon as he was done, he decided he was going to do 50 Ironman triathlons in 50 days in 50 states. And he went out and he did that. And that is an amazing story. That's what's in here. You can go see the documentary on Amazon. And then this year he decided, he recognized that he hadn't reached like his limits. And what he meant was that the logistics of having to travel around state by state was detrimental into what he was able to do overall. And so he decided to do from home, where he didn't have to travel all the time. He ended up doing 100 full distance triathlons in 100 days. So between swimming, biking, and running, it's over 140 total miles every single day he was going out and doing this. So really the pinnacle of human endurance challenges to this point, really. I don't know of anyone else that's come close to that type of feat to this point. So he's talking, and he's in his speech the other day, he mentioned how, and I've told this story, at one point, at the end of every race he was doing during the 50, he was allowing groups of people that wherever they were to run with him for like a 5K, like a 3-mile run. Come out, support the charity, that kind of thing. Everyone could go run. And his mom came out and ran. And, each race, she said, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. Can I do it again tomorrow? Right. And it was this amazing thing. And so that was the hardest thing that she had ever done. His daughter, 9-10 years old at the time, ran every single one of those 5Ks, all 50 of them. She ran every single one. And for her, that was the hardest thing that she had ever done. Now, guys, in your life, you've got things that you're pushing yourself to do. And you may be lacking self-confidence and this self-doubt, self-confidence. This is kind of where I want to hone in on today. For her, that was the hardest thing. For James, the 50-50-50 was the hardest. For his mom, it was that, the 5 in a row. For some people, it was getting out and doing one with him. Everybody's hard. Everybody's limit is different. Every single one of you has a different limit. Every single one of you has a different skill set. Every single one of you has a different way that you approach life. And one of the biggest obstacles that we have are these self-doubt, these limiting beliefs, this lack of self-confidence. In the Big Leap, it's one of the hidden barriers that Gay Hendricks talks about. He talks about, this feeling of inadequacy. Anybody ever felt inadequate at one point or another? We all have. And if you didn't raise your hand, then you're lying to yourself. At some point you did. All right, I want to talk a little bit about that. So James used a word during his talk, and actually I'm going to have to correct him on it because he used the wrong one. So he said catastrophism. The real word is catastrophizing. Like, okay, anybody heard that before? Anyone want to guess what catastrophizing is? It's essentially someone came off of mute and want to say something or no? Yes, no, yes.
Take a stab at it.
Yeah.
Is there exaggeration?
Exaggeration, Michael?
Making an issue out of everything.
Yeah.
Making a mountain out of a molehill.
There you go. There's the
Words out of my mouth.
phrase. I was getting ready to say the same thing. We do that. How many of you have done that before? Something's going to go wrong, right? Murphy's Law. How many of you guys have repeated that to yourself over and over? Oh, Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. But then we take it and we go further and further and further with it, right? So that's something that you do. So I want to kind of hit on some of these things. So I want to talk a little bit about inadequacy. I want to talk a little bit about catastrophizing. Wow. And some of these other elements. So hidden barriers, feelings of inadequacy. Maybe you never seem to measure up with all the creative and ambitious coworkers, family members, friends. Maybe you tend to feel bad about yourself because your spouse is so patient with the kids, you lose your temper. Right? You get frustrated over things and you go, why? I don't understand why I get frustrated. Why is my anxiety higher? Right? It could just be a general sense of not feeling worthwhile enough that seems to pervade most everything in areas of your life. It's the imposter syndrome that some of us feel when it comes to the business and marketing, right? Here's a few reasons why we feel that. And I'm going to dive into some of these. Your emotional expectations are unrealistic. You rely on reassurance to feel good. You dwell on past mistakes. Your values are unclear. So what is this? Emotional expectations are unrealistic. Expecting perfection, we look off. How many of you guys remember? I've talked before, but how many of you guys remember the difference between what the horizon is? You guys remember the horizon? The horizon, I want everyone to picture it. Some of you guys may remember this, others may not, but I want you to imagine going out and going on a road trip, and we're driving across Texas or Africa, somewhere that's just wide open. And you can look off in the distance, and for miles and miles and miles, all you see is prairie or plains or something way off in the distance. Now, the horizon, we can all picture the horizon is where the sun or the sky meets the earth, right? That line of demarcation where the sky meets the earth. And we can all imagine that, right? Everybody still with me? We're all picturing in our mind's eye what the horizon looks like. Exactly. Now we imagine that horizon to be success and financial freedom and unlimited health and happiness and relationships with no stress and no issues and waking up happy and, Disney birds are singing and chirping and, the mice are helping clean up the house and all that kind of fun stuff, right? Money's in all of the accounts. So we imagine this horizon, this perfection, and we go and we go and we go. How long is it going to take me to hit that horizon? When the reality is it's this mental construct. It's something that we've created that doesn't actually exist, right? Things just aren't perfect like that. And there's the ideal versus the actual. Now I've done a whole training on it. I'm not going to dive into it, but sometimes the unrealistic emotional expectations come from assuming that we're always going to be able to reach out and touch that horizon anytime we want. And when we don't, it's frustrating and we get upset. And then we start to think, was it something that I did? Is it something that I'm not doing? Is it something that I can do better? What about this? What about that? Right? So that's one thing that may cause a feeling of inadequacy or a little bit of catastrophizing or other things like that. Right? So another thing is you search for reassurances from somewhere else. Before you make a decision, you're looking for other people to reaffirm it. Or things are a little bit bad and immediately you reach out to a friend or family member to kind of just talk with you. Right? You go out seeking for some kind of reassurance that what you're doing, what you're thinking, or what you're saying and what you're feeling is validated. That it's okay. Because you've never learned to deal with any of your own bullshit. Right? And that's ultimately what it is. Now, I'm not saying look, we're in the middle of, is November, I think, Men's Mental Health Month. I'm not opposed to getting help, right? I've got a therapist. I've got a coach. Like I understand the value there. But one of the most important elements of therapy truly is not just to help you talk about your problems, but learn how to deal with it. Cognitive therapy, applied behavioral therapy, all of this stuff is so that you learn to deal with the stress on your own, right? And that you have that strength in order to do that. So if you're constantly searching for those reassurances, that's going to be an issue. And this one here, the dwell on past mistakes. Quick little exercise. I want you to imagine going through your life and you've got this little leprechaun following you around all the time. And every single time you go to do something, he says, you remember when you did that, like when you were 16 and this happened? You remember when you screwed up that test? You remember that first relationship you had? And like you finally met her parents and this happened. You remember that argument that you had over something stupid and it was totally your fault, but then you tried to blame it on them, but really it just destroyed the relationship. Remember when you cheated here or you did that or you screwed up at work or you messed up this situation? Remember when you just didn't add up? You missed your quarterly goals. You put on the weight when you weren't supposed to. You set that goal, you didn't follow through. Imagine going through life with that leprechaun dealing, all the time. Hey, remember when you used to eat at this buffet all the time? You put on all that weight and it drove away all of your friends because you're so obnoxious. The problem is some of us deal with that, and it's not a little leprechaun going around with us. It's in our own head. And you wonder where those feelings of inadequacy come from. We create them. So many of them. We do. I was in cleaning and restoration before, and some of you guys have heard this, but I've talked about some pieces of this story before, so forgive me if you've heard it, but I worked with, when I started in cleaning and restoration, I was 22 years old. I started working with my my ex-father-in-law, because my ex wanted me to, and I figured, hey, I'm going to do this for a little bit, and it'll be fine. And so I got into carpet cleaning and restoration, not because I was like, man, I want to make this my career move, but I'm going to do this for a few months. Well, after a couple of years, I'm still doing this. It took, after a couple of years, the in-laws invested in a franchise. Now, the purpose of a franchise is to give you name recognition, to give you training, to give you systems, to give you everything you need to run the business better than you're currently doing. Ultimately, that's what a franchise is, right? The reason McDonald's franchises are successful is because they have a system and there's uniformity throughout. So that was kind of what it was here. It was a franchise for restoration. Part of this franchise is you go and you attend meetings and you get training, and then you have, especially during the first year or so, there's consistent calls with the franchisor that's giving you additional training, that's helping you out through the process. Well, the in-laws at their time, I'm in my early 20s, said, Andrew, you're going to run all of the marketing and the advertising and build the relationships. You're going to do all of this stuff because we don't want to do it, because we're going to do the work. And you speak English better and all that kind of stuff. So, okay. And so I did. Here's the thing about a franchise, though, in the systems. If you don't work the systems, they don't typically work real well. We can all agree to that, right? Here's a system. Here's a way to work it. And it still boggles my mind sometimes when we give people some of the training and they go, oh, yeah, I didn't do that, but I figured I would do this. And I'm trying to figure out why it doesn't work. Well, you're not doing what you've shown in any way. So whatever. But so I was essentially given this, here's what you need to go do for your marketing. And then they came along afterwards and went, you can't do this. You can't do this. You can't do this. I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to spend so much time doing it. I don't want you doing it every single day. I don't want you doing, all of these things. So out of the 20 things, I was doing maybe 4 or 5. Well, each month, surprise, surprise, we're not getting the amount of sales and referrals that we should. Well, whose fault is it? Well, it's the salesperson's fault, right? It's my fault because I'm the one doing the work. And so after a time, they decide, hey, they don't want to do this anymore because they're paying all this money every month and nothing's going on. And I don't know why you're not getting any sales, blah, 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 blah. Now I'm young, in my early 20s. And I remember listening in on the phone call that they were having with the franchisor when they decided they were going to split ways. And I remember hearing very clearly where both of them placed the blame. And it wasn't the franchisor who should have told them, hey, if you're not following these things, then it's not going to work. It wasn't him saying, if you don't allow him to do that, it's not going to work. If you don't follow the systems, it's not going to work. He wasn't taking the blame. And it wasn't them, the owners at the time, that weren't allowing all of that stuff to happen. They didn't say anything. Where did all of the blame go? Right here. Now I'm in the other room, right? I remember distinctly, I'm sitting in our office, a side bedroom at the house, listening in on this conversation, broken because, I didn't make it work. And I hear the guy say, listen, he's too young. He's arrogant. He's never going to learn. He thinks he doesn't need to do this stuff. I wasn't doing it because they weren't telling me, but all I'm hearing is them talking about me. And this is how powerful other people's words and then our own thoughts become. And that's the point I want to get at. I'm hearing this guy say, no one's going to listen to him. He's not going to ever be able to, no one's ever going to believe anything that he says. He's not ever going to be able to sell anything. He's not going to be successful in anything he does. You guys should just get rid of him, cut your losses and move on. And, they just agreed with him, went along, but they wanted to, quit the whole franchise agreement anyway. So they end up doing that. And, that affected me for years. And I want you to think about what you guys have dealt with. That was part of my little leprechaun that followed me around for a long, long time. That was part of my feeling inadequate. That plus other things that I heard from them, from the ex, from whatever. But really, you get it into your head and you allow it to grow and grow and grow. And so we have to fight it. So if any of you guys are feeling inadequate, if any of you guys are allowing that little leprechaun to follow you around, you have to understand that there's work to be done. David's talking about the psychological training wheels. You've got to push to grow and grow out of that. So one of the reasons that I dove so deeply into personal development and so deeply into how your brain functions when you're dealing with certain things and overcoming obstacles, and why I went to work on all of this stuff, guys, a big part of that wasn't just that it interested me. It started with, holy crap, is this guy right? Is the problem with me? Or can I figure out a way to overcome that? So it's not just the training wheels, like David's talking about. It's essentially you're putting shackles on yourself and you're trying to run and you're trying to figure out why things aren't moving. So those feelings of inadequacy, you need to be able to identify and work through, right? And then the values are unclear is a big part of that as well, right? Where do I want to be? Well, this is where that horizon comes in. Well, I want to be successful. I want to be happy. I want my life to be different. Guys, that's about as unclear as we can give ourselves. And when you do that, and if you have any of these other elements in here, man, you're going to struggle. Right? You have this catastrophizing. This is what this is. It's a way of thinking called a cognitive distortion. It creates a distortion with who you are, where you're looking to be. They usually see the unfavorable outcome to an event and then decide that if the outcome does happen, the results are going to be a disaster. That happens oftentimes because of these elements. And so what do we need to do? Right? I'm going to show a couple of things that you may be struggling with. And then we are going to talk today and then probably a little bit tomorrow, but we're going to talk about how to work on them. But number one element that you may be struggling with some of this, or you may be doing some catastrophizing. One of the top things I believe is a lack of clarity. You just don't know what you want. You haven't decided for yourself what that really is. You think you do, but you haven't become real clear. Here's the thing about clarity. It constantly needs to be addressed. It is not I'm going to set this goal and never have to worry about it again kind of thing. Because as we march along in life changes. And so our pathway will adjust. And that's okay. but you need to continue to be clear on what it is that you want, right? So sometimes upper limit problems are set extremely low because of self-deprecation. Yeah, absolutely. Driving in the fog. Yep. Yeah, Michelle, when you've got, and some of you guys have this, past divorces, bad relationships, problem with the kids, problems at work, all of these things can create a feeling of inadequacy because we take on all of the problems that were created for whatever reason. So here's another reason that we may be struggling with some of this. We procrastinate. When you have self-doubt, it pushes you towards inaction. We've talked about this before, but one of the best ways to overcome self-doubt is through action, taking more action. When you're full of doubt, so the willpower gets empty. So, it's slide 1, procrastination. And the guy's saying, let's adjourn here and continue tomorrow. Next, you don't commit to your best idea. You come up with an idea and then you go back and you look for reassurances from someone else. You come up with an idea or you have an idea given to you and you go, well, I would, but, and we start moving in a different way because we want to procrastinate. We're scared to take action. Next, self-doubt erodes self-confidence. If you have some self-confidence, but then you begin to doubt yourself because of all of these other things, because you're lacking clarity and you're procrastinating, you're really going to struggle here. Look, it is a vicious cycle. Low self-esteem creates negative expectations. Low effort creates higher anxiety, which leads to failure, which leads to self-blame, which leads to lower self-esteem. Now, the cool thing is I've talked about momentum before, and we can look at self-confidence, and you can do the same thing and build yourself back up. So right now, I'm just trying to bring awareness, and part of this is understanding that you're not alone in feeling this. And hopefully, you're not feeling too much of this right now, but it still will sneak itself in there once in a while. If you're looking outside rather than inside, you're looking at the iPad, the Jordans, the Apple Watch, the car, the this, the that, the FOMO, the fear of missing out. If you're lacking courage, you see the life you've always dreamt about, but at some point you feel afraid. You think you don't deserve it because you're afraid of being happy. Guys, we need to just stop being scared of what may happen. You may have lost touch with yourself. Life gets full of distractions. Busyness blurs your potential. Trust yourself. No one knows better than you. Think about all the challenges you've overcome. Losing touch with yourself. 2021, nearing the end of this. Our time is taken up with social media. Average person has an attention span lower than that of a goldfish. And we don't do much deep work, deep thinking, right? There's too much noise. Now, look, I'm guilty of it. Every spare minute, I'm listening to a different audiobook. I'm picking up a book. I'm trying to do different things, right? You hop on to social media. At work, we try and appear busy so that we can, check off at the end of the day so the boss doesn't say, what were you doing, right? Let's be real. A lot of us work a lot, and you may work a lot of hours, but if we were to do deep work, if we were to actually focus and not allow all of the other distractions, we would probably be able to do most of our work in 30 to 40% of the time, right? Even when you're working hands-on, guys, I've done that. I did the cleaning and restoration that I was only going to do for a few months with my in-laws. I ended up doing it for over a decade, got over some of my BS and some of the stuff that guy had told me, and built a 7-figure business and then helped build another 8-figure business and, kind of transform things. But I know how to do the work with my hands. I know how to do it efficiently. And yeah, most of the time, hey, you can do that work faster if we just allowed ourselves to get a little bit deeper, but we lose ourselves, especially in the social media world. You've lost yourself. You're not clear on who you are. You're not clear on what you want. And so absolutely becomes difficult to become clear on how to get there. Well, tell me what I need to do. Well, let's talk about where you're starting. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about what I need to do with my business. I don't know. What do you need to do? Because what Michael needs to do is going to be different than what Lynn needs to do. Drake, what he needs to do is going to be different than what Carrie does. Every single one of us is different. If you don't know where you are right now, you don't know where you want to go, then damn it, I can't figure out a strategy for you. How the hell is anybody going to create a map to go from one place to another where you don't know where the starting or the end point is. So please spend some time figuring out where you are. The questions you ask yourself determine your feelings determine your focus. What you focus on, you move towards. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said, Scott. Okay. Is any of this helping? Is it kind of maybe a little light bulb here and there? Maybe this is something I'm dealing with. Maybe this is something I need to do. Maybe you need to find a little bit more clarity on where you're at. Some of you guys know where you want to be, but you haven't been truthful or clear on where you are right now. Or you dwell so much on where you are right now that you're afraid to take any action because you're catastrophizing everything. What a word for a Monday. Good grief. Okay. So you need to stop being your own worst critic. I almost don't want to dwell anymore on these. In a society that profits from your self-doubt, liking yourself is a rebellious act. What does that mean? In a society that profits from self-doubt. Where does that come from? Where do they make money right now, guys? Vaccines and medication, right? Roderick, you got something?
Yeah, one of the main places is keeping people in their system. Education, get a job, work 40 years, or retire. They can keep you there. They can stay ahead of you.
Yeah, it's control, right? You can't figure this out for yourself. It starts with school, right? And don't get me wrong, we may have some teachers on here. I'm all for education, and we have some amazing teachers in the world, but the way the system is set up, it's broken, right? School is go sit, as a kid, go sit for 8 hours, and we're going to give you this recess, and here's what your lunch looks like, and here's your expectations. Right?
Andrew?
Yes, sir.
This is really becoming a hot button for me regarding our educational system. I had worked in higher ed for many years. I got advanced degrees, and today that's like, so what? And I think we've really made people, well, like was said by Roderick, conform to the system. And we would not have what we have today if the great inventors of our age went to college. I mean, the great inventions that we have today.
A lot of them. Yeah. Entrepreneurs at our core, and many of you guys are self-identified. Many of you guys haven't realized yet that you are entrepreneurs, but you're a disruptor. You don't fit in the box. And that's where some of the self-doubt comes from, is because you've never fit where they wanted to put you. You didn't do it the way that they wanted, and so you didn't live up to those expectations, and it was someone else's expectations all of the time. I remember a second grade teacher. I still remember. How many of you guys have something like this? I remember a report card from second grade where my teacher said that I needed to learn how to focus or I would never be able to write or amount to anything. Second grade. Crying out loud, I'm 42 years old. I still remember Miss Minimoto writing that. Now what do? All day long, I use words to share a message and focus. Yeah, I still struggle with focus sometimes, but now I recognize why. Right? And we've talked about that, but you never fit in that box. And since you never fit in that box, maybe you struggled once in a while in school. Maybe you were great in school, but you had other issues like I did. I could pass a test with never studying for it, especially, look, let's be real, guys. Elementary school, middle school, high school, I didn't have test anxiety because most of the stuff they would teach wasn't exactly at the level they should have. And so most of those tests I could do just fine with, right? I didn't study, but I sure as hell wasn't paying attention at other times. That got me in trouble there, right? Sitting in the back of the room reading a novel instead of paying attention to the teacher. But so I was, labeled in certain ways. And then, my first marriage and not living up to those expectations and this, and that, that just wasn't me. And when you don't conform, because that's what they want you to doubt yourself, because then, yes, the education system, well, if you do this in the way that we've set it up for you, you're going to be okay. Medicine, not just the current vaccine. Obviously, that's a huge hot button all around the world, but anything to deal with medicine right now is, you need this medication, you need this medication, you need this supplement, you need that. Everything is about self-doubt. Well, I don't look good enough, so I need to lose weight. I need surgery because I don't look good enough. I need this because I don't feel good enough. I need that because social media is all about that instant gratification of someone else telling me I look good or I sound good, or if I'm frustrated with something, I can post something there as a, physically they have, some of you guys may not understand this term, but you post a thirst trap. So something where you're going to get a bunch of attention because, hey, I look pretty. But then we also have attention grabbers like, hey, I'm dealing with this problem, or I'm sad about this, or I'm, oh my gosh, nobody loves me. So I can get a bunch of attention and reassurance. Society right now is built around trying to feed you and keep that self-doubt going forever. Flip the script. Flip it. Figure out what you need. Now, I've talked about all the reasons that we get frustrated and self-doubt and the feelings of inadequacy. How about tomorrow I give you the key to be confident no matter what's going on? Is that all right? Okay. It's something you will be able to apply to this business, something you'll be able to apply to relationships, something you should be able to apply to life. I will tell you right now, when we look at this and some of these other things, guys, it's not for everybody can do it. Not everybody will. Everybody can push themselves. Not everybody will. I wish there was just a, here you go, check it off and never have to deal with it again. But you got to be willing to fight. You got to be willing to push, and you got to decide, right? Ultimately, and look, these challenges that we give, the current one that we're on, and some of you were into like the 45 days because you continued October, daily reassuring yourself that you can complete something. If you want confidence, do that. Something so simple, but I promise it can be powerful long term. So appreciate all of you guys being on today. Think about it. Don't dwell on the negative. Don't let the leprechaun hang out too much with you. Tomorrow we will dive into things a bit more, help you guys rebuild and lift yourselves up and find confidence no matter what is going on. Appreciate you guys as always. So plan on tomorrow. Wednesday is going to be a video. Thursday is going to be a guest. Friday, I may have one as well. Appreciate you guys. We will talk soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Absolutely.
What challenge are you on right now?
Get into the Skype group, but let me end the recording there. Hold on. Sometimes people have what it takes, but they haven't recognized it yet. Just go forward. So what do you need to do? How do you stand out? So what you need to do is be that person that's different and is bigger than you think. Rise from the ashes and fly like the phoenixes that you are.